Ottawa, Canada will hit back at U.S. President Donald Trump's 25% global steel and aluminum duties with tariffs that target 29.8 billion Canadian dollar worth of American goods. We will not stand idly by while our iconic steel and aluminum industries are being unfairly targeted, Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc said Wednesday. Ottawa will respond dollar for dollar, with reciprocal tariffs on imports from the U.S. as of midnight Wednesday. Targets include 12.6 billion Canadian dollars in American steel, 3 billion Canadian dollars in aluminum, and 14.2 billion Canadian dollars in additional U.S. goods, including computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said Wednesday that Canada is in a day-to-day fight. We will not back down, she added. The latest measures are in addition to the 30 billion Canadian dollars in counter-tariff Canada applied to U.S. goods on March 4th, following Trump's concerns about fentanyl. The excuse for those tariffs shifts every day, Joly said. The only constant in this unjustified and unjustifiable trade war seems to be President Trump's talks of annexing our country. Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney has vowed that his government intends to stick with retaliatory tariffs until the Americans show us respect. Canada expects credible, reliable commitments to free and fair trade, he said. Carney has said he will not insert himself in the trade negotiations until he is sworn in as Prime Minister, which is expected later this week. He won the race to replace Justin Trudeau by arguing that as a former central bank governor, he is the crisis manager the country needs right now. Trudeau, who spent the week packing up his office, was not present for Wednesday's announcement. Ontario Premier Doug Ford will travel to Washington on Thursday to meet U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick alongside LeBlanc and Innovation Minister François-Philippe Champagne. The conversation tomorrow will be around lowering the temperature and focusing on the process that President Trump set up, where Secretary Lutnick has up to April 2nd to determine a series of global tariff decisions, LeBlanc said. After a spicy back and forth on Tuesday, Ford agreed to suspend 25% tariffs on electricity exports his province had levied on 3 U.S. states in exchange for the White House meeting. Temperatures are very high at the moment. A lot is going on, Catherine Cobden, president and CEO of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, told Politico on Tuesday night. It's extremely volatile and unpredictable. Ultimately, we hope to see us get to a point where we're back to a USMCA that's good for the steel industry in North America. Cobden said she was anticipating dollar for dollar, product for product, retaliation, and no more. We are really counseling anyone that will listen to us that we shouldn't be escalating the problem. She said Canada must defend itself, but not overreach. We should be firm in our resolve to stand up for our domestic industry by having a retaliation plan that matches exactly what the U.S. has done. They do it to us, we do it back. Unifor National President Lana Payne accused Trump of knowingly inflicting damage to the North American manufacturing sector. This unjustified and unprovoked trade war hurts working people. This could end today if the U.S. removes the threat of tariffs and gets to the bargaining table to start the CUSMA review process, she said in a statement Wednesday morning with reference to the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. Matt Walker, president of the Canada Metal Processing Group, said the tariff will also harm consumers who rely on high-quality Canadian steel, which the U.S. does not supply or produce sufficiently itself. New polling released Wednesday from Ledger shows that Canadians' sense of pride has surged in response to Trump's tariffs and threats against the country's sovereignty. There's a new movement in Canada, and that's our Canada First movement, Flavio Volpe of Canada's Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association told CNN last night. Earlier on Wednesday, the European Union announced a 2-stage retaliation covering 26 billion euros in EU exports. Tariffs are taxes. They are bad for business and even worse for consumers, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in an early morning statement on Wednesday. These tariffs are disrupting supply chains. They bring uncertainty to the economy. Jobs are at stake. Prices will go up. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said on Friday that he would pull the advertisement after the weekend, allowing trade talks to resume. The advertisement ran on Friday night, during the broadcast for game on a Major League Baseball's World Series, in which the Toronto Blue Jays are facing off against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Their advertisement was to be taken down immediately, but they let it run last night during the World Series. Knowing that it was a fraud, Trump wrote in a post on his Truth social platform as he flew on board Air Force One to Malaysia. Because of their serious misrepresentation of the facts and hostile act, I'm increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they are paying now. The Canadian government did not immediately comment on Trump's announcement of additional tariffs on Saturday. It was not clear what goods would be affected by Trump's newly announced tariffs. The majority of Canadian exports to the U.S. are exempt from tariffs because of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, which was signed during Trump's first term. Canada is one of the United States' most important trading partners. Last year, it was the third top source of imports for the United States, with more than $410 billion worth of goods coming in. Many American supply chains are also highly dependent on Canada, such as the auto industry. However, the administration has been encouraging the big three U.S. automakers to reduce their cross-border manufacturing. Trump's termination of talks on Thursday is not the first time he has cut off trade negotiations with Canada. In June, he said he was terminating all discussions on trade with Canada, citing the treatment of American tech companies and dairy farmers. Canada quickly retaliated, slapping a quota on steel products over what Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne called unjust U.S. tariffs. But days later, Canada announced it would rescind its digital services tax, which would have hit major U.S. companies to appease Trump. Carney visited the White House in early October, and relations seemed to have been patched up. Speaking alongside Carney in the Oval Office, Trump spoke of the mutual love the United States and Canada have for each other. But Trump still hinted at possible tensions. "We want Canada to do great," he said. "But, there's a point at which we also want the same business."